Hello and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one first and only baseball-centric podcast. And I'm once again back here in the month of February, the shortest month of the year, but that means we're closer and closer to spring training. We are less than 50 days away from opening day, and I'm incredibly excited. Pitchers and catchers report here pretty darn soon. I was kind of expecting two big free agent pieces to come off the board by now. I kind of projected that last week, and unfortunately for me, that didn't really work out. Those two Boras guys are still free agents as of right now. Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman still remain on the market. But that isn't to say that we still have some decent free agent signings. So we're going to go ahead, dive right into the news here. We're also going to be doing a little bit of college baseball discussion here before we jump into our NL West Part 1 breakdown. I'm going to tell you that the Dodgers will be the last team that I cover because I'm going to have an extended take on them. Of course, again, we're not a Dodger-centric podcast, but I'm a Dodger fan, and I feel like it's necessary for me to go ahead and finish on them in a more in-depth perception, let's just say. So, without further ado, let's get into the news. Max Scherzer signs a deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. He signs a 1-year, $15.5 million deal. And Scherzer really struggled in 2024 with injuries. He didn't do great with the Texas Rangers. His last great years in 2021, where he went 15-4, had a 2.46 ERA. When he finished off the Dodgers, he was one of those pieces that the Dodgers went ahead and got. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for the Dodgers. The vet's entering his 40th season, and we can see if he can turn it around. I mean, back in 2021, he finished third in Cy Young voting. So who knows? A lot more that could be left in the tank there. He's still a really great pitcher, don't get me wrong. And I'm hoping that he can just stay healthy. I mean, Toronto, I really think kind of got to the party late when it comes to free agent signings, but I don't know. They kind of added to something I don't think they necessarily needed with Bassett and Gausman already being there. I don't think that was the biggest team need. I think they could have gone for something else. But what am I to say? What do I know? Harrison Bader signs with the Minnesota Twins for a 1-year, $6.25 million, $2 million that was guaranteed, $2 million option in that contract as well, based on incentives. Bader played for the St. Louis Cardinals for quite a while. New York Yankees, wasn't really great with the Yankees. Has always kind of struggled with power, but has been a consistently good glove in the outfield. He's kind of become like a Kevin Kiermaier type guy. Former All-Star MVP Elias Diaz signs with the San Diego Padres on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. That was only about 2 years ago or so that he was the All-Star MVP. That was probably one of the more random All-Star MVPs that we've ever gotten. Elias Diaz, and the Rockies actually DFA'd him earlier this year. And I was like, wow, that was not something I was expecting, but he's not been really terrific since that one appearance in the All-Star game. I also think that he was the Rockies' only All-Star that year. Excuse me. I have a bit of a cold and a bit under the weather recently here. I've been kind of losing my voice. That's kind of why I'm going to push this through, just so you guys know. And I want to apologize if I sound really hoarse and I'm coughing a lot, because I'm just trying to get this episode through before I get a little bit more sicker here. So anyway, the Orioles signed Ramon Laureano on a 1-year, $4 million deal. That man has a cannon of an arm, but his career was kind of stopped short when he was with Oakland due to the steroids, and he's never really managed to find it back. Another center fielder that just really struggles with power, but has a fantastic arm and a pretty darn good glove. So hopefully Laureano can get it back together. But again, he's not really been the same since his PED suspension. Randall Grichuk is back in the desert on a 1-year, $5 million contract with the Diamondbacks, and I think that's another good pickup. We're going to be talking about the Diamondbacks here later in the show. We're doing our NL West breakdowns. We're doing 3 teams. One of them is not the Dodgers, so yeah. Speaking of the Dodgers traded Ryan Brazier to the Chicago Cubs in exchange for players to be named later and cash considerations. The reliever had a pretty darn good year, 3.5 3.54 ERA on that World Series team. He's a two-time World Series champion. He got one with the Red Sox and he got one with the Dodgers. So I really liked him in the playoffs. He was a part of that bullpen that pushed us to the World Series, that pushed us past San Diego. He was part of all those bullpen games, especially that Game 7. So Ryan Brazier, I wish him the best in Chicago, but I think it was a team need for the Cubs, and I think the main reason that the Dodgers moved on from Ryan Brazier is because they signed Kirby Yates, as we talked about in the last program. And then finally, again, there's not been a lot of signings. We're going to be moving through this kind of fast. Tim Anderson signs a minor league deal with the Los Angeles Angels, someone who has really just fallen off. He was with the Marlins previously, and of course the White Sox, who's a highly touted prospect, but emotions and a lack of power really just kind of drew him out of that starting spot. And he was also just on the most dysfunctional team. Then he went to another dysfunctional team, and now he's going to another dysfunctional team. So we wish him the best, and we hope he doesn't get his career knocked out before it should have been started. And next, here's our college baseball segment. The college baseball preseason rankings were dropped. Texas A&M starts out at number 1, followed by Tennessee, LSU, UVA, and Arkansas. Vanderbilt is at 18, and WVU is at 21. I'm really happy to see WVU still staying ranked, even after losing guys like J.J. Weatherholt. I'm really excited to go to some games at the Mon here this year. The SEC and the ACC once again dominate the rankings as something common in baseball, and there's a big reason behind this, and it's very simple. It's because, think about a lot of these northern teams. They really can't practice. It's not like football or basketball. Basketball's always played indoors. It's not like football that has indoor training facilities, these huge state-of-the-art facilities. Baseball doesn't have this. For example, take Maine baseball. The Maine Black Bears do not play a home game until March 25th, and their season starts February 14th. These teams usually, if they're able to practice, if they're allowed to, they're practicing with plastic balls indoors and indoor gyms, or just conditioning inside. So for some smaller schools, and that's why a lot of these Power 4 teams from the north, like Michigan State and Rutgers, just kind of struggle as opposed to teams from the southeast and west coast, because they can practice year round. That's just why you don't see a lot of Big Ten teams, especially because a lot of people, if you follow college baseball, you kind of wonder where the Big Ten is. Well, the Big Ten, most of those schools, at least from the way the conference used to be before teams like USC joined, were in pretty cold environments, places like Lincoln, Nebraska, Michigan State and East Lansing, Minnesota. So just so many teams, Rutgers in New Brunswick. Yeah, sorry, I always mix up where they are. But yeah, north, hard to practice. And that's the preseason rankings. I'm really looking forward again to watching WVU play this year. I plan on attending multiple games. So we're going to be starting. We have 3 teams to cover here in our NL West breakdown. Number 1, we have the San Diego Padres. This isn't in particular order of how we think they're going to finish, by the way. I think you guys have caught on to that. We've been watching. San Diego Padres, a great team in a hard division, a bad fan base, if you ask me, but they're a team that just can't get over the hump because they have a lot of pieces. And they can't really win the division. I don't think that there's a feasible way. Who knows? They could find a way like they did in 2022, 2021 to win that division. But it's very unlikely, especially if the Dodgers are building with teams like the Diamondbacks and the Giants that are going to be taking some series from them throughout the year. It's going to be really, really hard. The pieces are there. I mean, Tatis, Machado, Cease, Cronenworth, Bogarts, Darvish, Arise, and Jackson Merrill, of course, who almost won Rookie of the Year. They have a fantastic farm system, and really all they need is outfield and pitching. I would say just grab another power hitter too, but hey, man, I really can't tell you what a key is necessarily for them. And it's gotten a little bit harder because the New York Mets have now gotten better, and the National League is still just as good, if not better than it was last year. Dodgers have improved. Mets have improved. Phillies are still great. Diamondbacks in their division have improved. The Cubs have improved. There are a lot of teams standing in their way, and that's kind of why I think this NL is going to be really, really top heavy. And one of those wild card teams, whether if it's the Mets, Phillies, or Padres, assuming that it stays how we expect it, one of those guys is probably going to be on the outside looking in, either in the playoffs or winning a playoff series. So, like I said, what they need is outfield power hitting. Pitching, I would say Verdugo, Rizzo, go bigger, go Pete Alonso. I mean, he's still there. They have Luis Ariz hanging out at first base right now. You could always move him around. You could move him back to second base where he was when he was with the Marlins. You could always put him at DH. You could always put Alonso at DH too, even though he's a pretty good defensive first baseman. A lot you can do with him because you have a guy like Jake Cronenworth who can be moved around very, very easily. So, Pivetta, I think Nick Pivetta, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated pitching free agents right now. I hope someone goes for him. Whenever I'm talking about a team that I think can contend like the Padres, that is a couple pieces away, I will be suggesting Nick Pivetta. So, by the way, when I'm talking about teams like the Tigers, and I'm talking about teams like the Royals, when I'm talking about teams like the Red Sox bringing Pivetta back, I just add him to the list. Even if I don't mention him, just automatically assume that that's who's on my mind. Their 2024 was good, but not good enough. I mean, they finished 93 and 69. Statistically better than the Dodgers. I had them beating the Dodgers in the playoffs. We remember that if you've been watching Out of Pocket back around that time, back in early October, mid-October, I was talking about that. They still lost. I mean, and they're losing people at an alarming rate while that window is still open. I mean, obviously Juan Soto went to New York and then went to the other New York team, and they're just kind of struggling to keep people because they've had to pay a lot of people. They had to pay Tatis, they had to pay Machado, they're going to have to pay Cronenworth soon. Eventually, they're going to have to pay Merrill. They have that huge Darvish contract too, so there's a lot of financial overhead right now with that team. So it's a big boomer bust, but we'll see how they're doing. How do I think their 2025 is going to go? I think they're going to be about the same. I'm saying 90 and 72 just as a placeholder. I think they're going to be in second place, at the worst third, but I think they're a comfortable playoff team regardless how they end up. We'll see. We'll cover that later on, but let's say 90 and 72 for the Friars of San Diego. 90 and 72 for the Padres. And we're going to be moving from a team that has been historically competent or historically incompetent to being competent to a team that has historically always been incompetent in the Colorado Rockies, a totally directionless team, probably the second most forgotten about team behind the Buffalo Sabres. They have 5 playoff appearances ever, 1 World Series berth where they were swept by the Boston Red Sox, and they have 12 playoff wins. This isn't a new team. They were founded in 1993, and that is getting longer and longer ago. And in no way is this me harping on them, but I don't dislike them. I don't dislike their fan base. They're just completely complacent with losing. Even bad teams like the Nats and Angels are at least still trying some fabrication of winning, trying to at least sign someone, do something, make little moves. The Rockies are not. Them and the Marlins, man. Them and the Marlins are just completely okay with losing. This team has become so bad that they're just completely forgotten about. And they're in the 17th ranked sports market in the country. And don't forget that the Denver Nuggets won the finals in 2023. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in 2022. And the Denver Broncos have had a resurgence with Bo Nix and Sean Payton with the playoff appearance this year. And they were even viewed as a dark horse to beat the Bills, which didn't end up happening, but still. I really just think the Rockies are okay with losing. And again, when I go into this take, I don't want you to think that I hate them necessarily. I don't at all. I want them to do better. I think that they deserve better. They have a solid farm system. They got guys like Zach Veen, Jay Stollander, Charlie Condon, who they just drafted, and Jordan Beck. They round out the 12th best-ranked farm system. Brendan Rodgers was hugely hyped up. I think that they should have re-signed him, but he's not been up to par. He's had positive WAR season 2024 as well as a Gold Glove in 2022, but the power struggles recently, only 13 home runs in 2024. Ryan McMahon, Ezekiel Tovar, he was really disappointing these past 2 years too. I was expecting way more out of Ezekiel Tovar, and Nolan Jones too, another guy who I expected a lot out of. He's a power hitter. You're in the best hitters ballpark in the country. with guys like Ryan McMahon, with guys like Nolan Jones, big power hitters, corner infielder power hitters, and you're just not getting much done. So I really want to see them do better. And I think that there's a lot of raw talent there that still has time to be developed. I just still don't get why they didn't re-sign Brendan Rodgers, at least on a short-term deal. His value is not that big. He's still sitting on the market right now. So clearly he wasn't asking that much money probably anyway, or he's asking an obscene amount. So who knows? What they need, pitching, buy low, like most struggling franchises, buy low, get guys like Kendall Graveman. Jason Hayward is still on the market too, a good veteran presence to go sit in there now that Charlie Blackmon, probably the best Colorado Rocky ever, long-term wise, who spent his entire career there, just retired, a good locker room guy, or a guy like Jose Urania or Robbie Grossman, even, who had a solid year with the Tigers. It isn't really time to spend. It's time to get some veterans in there. It's time to go try and just steal yourself a couple of wins, have a better record than you did in 2024, and just teach the young guys, just mentor them, I think in 2025, I'll call it now. It's close between them and the Marlins being the worst team in baseball. I still give it to Miami. I still think it's going to be close. I gave Miami 104 to 110 losses. I give the Rockies about the same. I'm going to say a 60 and 102 for the Colorado Rockies. And again, it's very unfortunate because this is such a large sports market. And you've had your three other teams, 4 teams are in Denver, and 3 of those teams have been relevant historically, especially Denver is historically a very good franchise. And the Colorado Avalanche have a pair of Stanley Cups too. They've been relevant for a lot of their existence. And again, Denver Nuggets, who have the most nonchalant basketball player. I love that man. I love Jokic. But again, this is not a basketball show. That is 3 from Deep with Jason, which you make sure to tune into. Finally, for the NL West, we're going to be jumping on the Diamondbacks train going to the desert. Diamondbacks, they did so much this offseason to rebuild after a step back from a World Series appearance. You can't really get much better than that outside of winning the World Series. So anything is a step back by comparison unless you win the darn thing. What they have, a lot. They have Zach Gallen. They have Corbin Carroll. They have Yuli Gurriel. They have Merle Kelly. They have Eugenio Suarez now. They have Josh Naylor just signed, Kentel Marte, and of course the new face of that organization with Corbin Burns. And there's just so many people there that can build that team and can be a sneaky good team like they were 2 years ago. And I think that they very well might end up being again. I am going to go ahead and say I think they're either going to be second or third place. I think this is a playoff team. I think Corbin Burns will absolutely be electric this year. I'm drafting him as my first pitcher in fantasy baseball this year if he's still there, depending on the pick that I get. I think he's going to be really great. I think that offense is well balanced now, especially with getting guys like Naylor and Suarez too, who can add a little bit of power to that mostly average hitting team, batting average, not just average as they're mediocre. So Corbin Carroll is going to continue to get better. Zach Gallen will continue to get better. Merle Kelly adds a veteran presence. And then of course you got Corbin Burns, who I think could be a Cy Young candidate this year. What they need, I won't say much. The rotation is really great. I would say maybe pick up a guy like Brendan Rodgers, a guy you could kind of move anywhere. I don't really think they're going to be spending big money. I don't see them going after Polar Bear or Bregman. I don't see them really having a need to do that because of all the amount of money that they spent on Corbin Burns. They gave him a behemoth contract. So their 2024, of course, again, as we said, was a step back, but it's hard to have not step back, let's just say, unless you win the World Series. Trying to maintain momentum. And I like that they're staying competitive. Even though they went 89 and 73, it isn't terrible. That division was super strong, but I appreciate the fact that, hey, we made the World Series and we lost. Next year, we weren't as good. We were okay. We might have made the playoffs in another year in another division, but not this year. Even though we almost won 90 games, we still missed. We were the last team out. I would much rather see them in Atlanta personally, but what am I the judge to say? I admire staying competitive. I really do. I think it's good to go and be like, we don't want to do this again. Everybody else around us is getting better. Let's also get better. Their 2025, I think that because they've made such an effort to keep up with the Dodgers and the Padres, if the rotation can stay healthy, they can win some important divisional matchups, earlier in the year, April, May, June, those early season matchups. I'm going to say 92 and 70. I say second or third place with a wild card berth. I think them and San Diego make it in. The Dodgers win the division. I'll have my full Dodger breakdown next week on our final division breakdown. And I root for them in their success. I'm obviously not a fan of them. I love their 2023 run to the World Series, the magic that they did, even though they did knock the Dodgers out. I like them attempting to stay competitive. They have a young roster. And unlike teams like Toronto and Seattle, they're actually making moves to build around that fantastic, young, great roster. And I admire that. So, that being said, we have one more episode left of our divisional breakdowns. We have two more teams to cover, and that is the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll be finishing on the Dodgers. I have a lot to say about both, mainly the Dodgers. After that, I'm kind of figuring out what I'm going to do between now and when spring training / the regular season starts, opening day starts. We're going to be doing some previews here. I'm going to be asking around, but please, if you have any suggestions, please put them in the comments. Reach out to me personally. You all know my social medias. But with that being said, we're going to be jumping into our trivia question of the week. Last week, what is the only team to have every number between 1 and 10 retired? This one I kind of thought was easy. I don't know if you guys did. I personally did. It is the New York Yankees. Every number between 1 and 10 is retired for the New York Yankees. So, again, Jason's team, make sure to tune into his show, 3 from Deep. And now, this week's trivia question is, who was the last player to hit 400? So who was the last player to hit a base hit 40% of the time? It may surprise you. It may not surprise you because it was a pretty long time ago. We will be answering that next week in our final NL West breakdown, our final divisional breakdown. But ladies and gentlemen, my voice is about to go out. I can barely talk anymore. I want to thank you for tuning in to Dugout Debrief this week. I want to thank you for tuning into Boom Broadcasting. Once again, make sure to tune into Out of Pocket. Make sure to tune in to Quick Hits. Make sure to tune into 3 from Deep. And of course, make sure to tune into the Gridiron Address. This week, we will be doing a Super Bowl preview. I will be there with the man himself, Aaron Schneider. We will also be doing head coach breakdowns, new hire breakdowns. We're going to be talking about a lot this week as we are less than a week from the Super Bowl between the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. So that being said, I want to thank you once again for tuning in, and I hope you have a great week.